One morning, Cameron is lying in bed next to Diane, and they confess their love for each other. But suddenly, he wakes up and realizes it was just a dream. Later, Cameron's parents, Hunter and Carol, argue about his future. Hunter thinks it's time for Cameron to make a career decision, but Carol tells him not to pressure their son too much. At the ice cream parlor where Cameron works, assistant manager Lenny scolds him for being late and assigns him to close the shop tonight. Cameron tries to explain that he has a date with Diane, but Lenny doesn't believe that a girl like her would go out with him. That same day, a mysterious woman is seen in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Cameron's coworker Liz is annoyed because she now has to close the cafe. She also doesn't believe Cameron's story about the date. Cameron insists that he and Diane have been friends for years, and when Diane came back from college, she messaged him first. After work, Cameron goes to Diane's house and sees her sunbathing in a bikini. Just then, bullies Chad and Jason show up and accuse him of secretly taking photos of her. They snatch his phone and throw it onto the street. Hearing the commotion, Diane comes outside, and Cameron insists he wasn't spying on her. But when he goes to pick up his phone, a car runs over it, crushing it. Diane believes him and tells the bullies to leave. Cameron then leaves as well. That evening, Cameron accidentally sees his new neighbor, Victoria, changing through her window. But Victoria notices him too, and he quickly ducks out of sight. During dinner, Hunter refuses to buy Cameron a new phone, saying he should have stood up for himself against the bullies. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and Cameron panics, thinking it might be Victoria. But when he opens the door, it's just Diane. They go out for pizza, where Diane apologizes about his phone. Cameron spots his friend Martin and invites him over, but Diane refuses. The moment Martin sees Diane, he gets uncomfortable and quickly leaves without saying anything. On the way home, Diane finally explains that Martin suddenly broke up with her on prom night for no reason. Cameron is shocked and tells her that if he were in Martin's place, he never would have left her. Diane then recalls the night Cameron first came to her house, when they stole her dad's liquor and got drunk. She tells him that she had something important to say that night, but Cameron passed out before she could. Just then, Cameron spots Victoria again and, startled, rushes back home. As soon as he reaches his room, Victoria suddenly appears behind him. Cameron quickly tries to explain that he wasn't peeping on purpose. He tells her that he usually only saw an old lady at that window. Victoria says she's staying in that house for a few days, and in return, she wants to borrow Cameron's car. Cameron says he doesn't have insurance, but Victoria coldly replies, "That's your problem." Later, Cameron drives Victoria to an office building where she takes his car keys so he can't leave. A security guard lets Victoria inside while Cameron waits in the car. Half an hour later, bored, Cameron walks toward the building. Suddenly, a blood-covered security guard stumbles outside, screaming for help. Watching Victoria ruthlessly kill the guard, Cameron finally realizes she's a vampire. Victoria bluntly tells him that if he wants to stay alive, he'll have to drive her around. Before leaving, she gives him a light kiss and walks away. The next day, Hunter notices bloodstains on the car, but Victoria arrives just in time to explain that she hit a deer on the road. She also offers to pay for Cameron's car insurance if he agrees to be her driver. Hunter sees no issue with it, which leaves Cameron a little frustrated. Later, Martin confesses to Cameron that he broke up with Diane on prom night because he didn't know how to handle being with a girl that beautiful. He even asks Cameron to help convince Diane to give him another chance. That night, while Cameron waits in the car for Victoria, a dead body suddenly falls onto his windshield. Moments later, Victoria returns, her lips stained with blood. Cameron quickly cleans up the mess and drives away. A few hours later, the vampire sneaks into Cameron's room and finally reveals the real reason she came to this town. She's actually 247 years old, and back in 1890, a dangerous vampire clan killed her lover after he refused to join them. Over the past 100 years, those vampires have spread across America, and Victoria has been tracking them down, one by one, to destroy them all. Hearing this, Cameron breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that his neighbor isn't hunting humans, only vampires. The next day, Martin asks Cameron to go on a double date with Diane because he's too nervous to be alone with her. A little later, Lenny is surprised to see Cameron and Diane actually talking and getting along. That evening, Victoria tells Cameron that she's going after one of her enemies tonight and that she'll soon have to hunt down the vampire leader who killed her lover. She orders Cameron to stay in the car, but he follows her inside the building anyway. As soon as they enter, an enemy opens fire, and Cameron drops to the ground. Victoria immediately pounces on the attacker, biting deep into his neck and killing him instantly. Afterward, Cameron gets up and casually tells Victoria that he wasn't actually shot. He just pretended to be down to distract the enemy. Before they leave, Cameron asks Victoria to join him on Martin and Diane's date. so he has an excuse to tag along. The next day, Liz invites Cameron to a band performance, but he turns her down. During the date, Cameron breaks the awkward silence by mentioning that Martin dreams of becoming a professional baseball player. When Diane leaves for the restroom, Victoria suddenly shows up and calls Cameron outside. Cameron admits that he's been in love with Diane for years, just like Martin, but his real plan is for Diane to spend time with Martin and realize how boring he actually is. That evening, Cameron tells Victoria about the bullies who always mess with him. To teach him confidence, Victoria provokes Chad into throwing a punch at Cameron. Then, she trains him to land a few powerful hits to defend himself. Gathering his courage, Cameron approaches Chad and lands a solid punch right into his ribs, making him double over in pain. After that, the bullies finally back off and leave Cameron alone. But as soon as he gets in the car, he winces in pain. His wrist is throbbing from the punch. Victoria hands him a small bottle with a mysterious liquid. She then explains that it's her blood. It can instantly heal human injuries, but it won't turn him into a vampire. That night, while Cameron is dreaming about Diane, Victoria suddenly appears in his bed and passionately kisses him, just to make Diane jealous. Just then, Hunter walks in, but after seeing what's happening, he quietly leaves without saying a word. Still, Cameron stops Victoria. He doesn't want to cheat on Diane. He still hopes that one day, Diane will like him back. The next morning, during breakfast, Hunter smirks at his son and knowingly winks. Later, Martin complains to Cameron that the date was a disaster after he left. Cameron simply replies that maybe Diane just isn't happy with him. Meanwhile, Victoria shows up at the clothing store where Diane works. Cameron confesses to Liz about his messy love triangle and finally agrees to attend her band's performance. That evening, as Cameron is leaving, Hunter casually hands him a pack of chewing gum. But just then, Cameron spots Diane walking into his neighbor's house. He immediately changes his plans, skips the concert, and rushes home. At the concert, Liz waits for him, but he never shows up. Peeking through the window, Cameron is stunned. Diane and Victoria are kissing. Moments later, they turn off the lights and disappear into the bedroom. The next morning, Cameron watches as Diane steps out of his neighbor's house. Victoria follows right behind her, smirking as she asks, "Enjoy the show?" Furious, Cameron snaps that he's done working for her. But before he can walk away, Victoria grabs his collar and coldly reminds him that their mission isn't over. He has no choice but to finish it. Later, Cameron convinces Martin to ask Diane out again and promises to help him. Then, he heads to the cafe, where Liz slaps him the moment she sees him for ditching the concert last night. Cameron goes to the clothing store, where Diane tells him that Martin just asked her on another date. That same day, Carol gifts her son a new phone, but tells him not to tell his father about it for now. Later, Cameron gives Martin an earpiece and a microphone so he can coach him through the date. Throughout the date, Cameron listens in on their entire conversation. When Diane happily tosses Martin her car keys and tells him he can take her anywhere, Cameron advises him to just drop her home. But Martin ignores him and drives to a secluded spot instead. Annoyed, Cameron rushes after them. But when he arrives, he spots Diane whispering something into her earpiece before casually tossing it out of the car window. That's when it hits him. Diane knew about the earpiece all along. Suddenly, Diane sinks her sharp fangs into Martin's neck, and the shocking truth is revealed. Diane is a vampire too. Stunned, Cameron panics and sprints toward Liz's cafe, but she isn't there. Moments later, Diane walks in herself. Cameron freezes in fear, assuming she's killed Martin. But Diane simply opens the trunk of her car, revealing Martin, alive and unconscious inside. She calmly explains that she didn't kill him. She just made him stronger, strong enough to play professional baseball. Then, she softly smiles at Cameron and looks him in the eyes. "Cameron, I love you." Diane confesses that she was afraid that if Cameron ever found out the truth, she'd lose him forever. With sadness in her eyes, she reveals that she's been alive for centuries, and everyone she ever loved eventually aged and died. She doesn't want the same fate for Cameron. Cameron understands and forgives her. They share a passionate kiss, unaware that Lainey is silently watching them from the shadows. That night, Victoria tells Cameron that she had no idea Diane was a vampire until she took a closer look. Now, the truth was out. Diane belonged to the very same dangerous vampire clan that Victoria had been hunting. And now, Cameron was caught in the middle. Realizing that Cameron is in danger, Diane rushes to his house. But suddenly, Lainey steps out from behind a tree, shouting that he knows exactly what Diane really is. He threatens to expose the truth to everyone. In a flash, Diane slams him to the ground and sinks her fangs into his neck. Minutes later, Diane and Martin burst into the house, only to find that Victoria has taken Cameron hostage. A fierce battle erupts between the two vampires. Victoria lunges at Diane with a blade, but Diane dodges and strikes back. Within moments, she overpowers Victoria, pinning her to the floor. Diane reveals that 100 years ago, her clan leader had grown ruthless and she wanted to escape. That's when she met Victoria's lover, who promised to shelter her within his own vampire clan. He even gave her his blood to keep her safe. But when their cruel leader found out, he murdered Victoria's lover. Hearing this, Victoria's rage fades. She realizes her mistake and forgives Diane. Now, the two vampires decide to put an end to the war and start their own clan. A new beginning. Diane kisses Cameron one last time to say goodbye. Meanwhile, Lainey, who has now become a vampire himself, appoints Liz as the new assistant manager of the cafe before leaving with the vampires.